Hi guys, on today's video we're going to take the VersaPrime bench priming tool from unboxing to first use. Let's get started. When you initially unbox the VersaPrime, you're going to have the VersaPrime body and 3 bags, a disc bag, an aluminum parts bag, and a steel parts bag. You'll have the handle, the primer turning disc, and your primer tubes. Now once you get your body bench mounted, you're ready to continue assembly. Now that your priming body is bench mounted, you need to decide what location you want your handle in. Now the VersaPrime is completely ambidextrous. You can put the handle on the right or the left, and some folks even like to take the priming body and mount it vertically on the bench and hang their handle off of the bench. It does not matter, there's no right or wrong, it's what works best for you. Now I'm right-handed, it's mounted square to the bench, so I'm going to install my handle on the right side. So your first step is to locate the primer handle stop and Allen key, and you're going to thread this in on the same side you intend to put the handle. It doesn't really matter how far you thread that primer handle stop in initially. That mechanical stop is what sets the primer seating depth, which we'll adjust later in the video. You're now ready to install the primer handle. So locate the primer handle, the pin, and the E-clip. Now for the handle, you're going to take the cam and face it up and insert it into the slot, line it up for the pin. Now simply secure it with the E-clip on the back. You'll next need to locate your primer punches. You'll have a small and a large, and that simply corresponds to whether you're priming large or small primers. Now we'll be using large primers, and you simply drop that right into the center hole of your primer body assembly. Next, locate the primer feed discs. Now these are large and small. Simply choose the correct one for your application. We're using large. You're going to install this in the back of the primer feed body with the raised portion up and the detents facing down. You'll feel it snap into place when you insert it. Next, take the feed disc pin and place it through the back. You're now ready to install your primer tube adapter. Now this is one of those things that's really personal preference. If you like to feed the primers by pulling the primer disc counterclockwise, you'll need your primers on the left side. Now if you want to push the disc clockwise, you'll need it on the right side. I prefer to pull that disc counterclockwise. So take your adapter and simply thread it in on the appropriate side. You'll then take your primer adapter plug and install it on the side not being used. You're now ready to insert your shell holder. First, identify your priming guides. Now these primer guides are large and small, and you'll simply take the correct one and drop it right over your priming pin. You'll take your shell holder and set it right on top. Now with the VersaPrime priming tool, it's vitally important that you use a Hornady branded shell holder. That primer guide was designed specifically for the internal hole diameter of the Hornady shell holder, and that helps line that primer up true and precise. Next, you'll need the shell holder clamps. These are small aluminum pieces on either side of the shell holder, and you'll also need those 1032 cap screws to secure it in place. You're now ready to install the primer tubes. Start by taking the primer tube housing and threading it on. Next, you'll select the proper primer tube, large or small, and it's important to note these do not have the plastic grommets at the end. You'll simply drop the shouldered section down first, seat it into the primer tube, then take the primer tube support and place it on top. Lastly, your fiberglass follower. Now that fiberglass follower is going to do 3 things for you. Number 1, it's going to add a little pressure to keep those primers feeding nicely. Number 2, it's a visual indicator of how many primers you have left in the tube. And lastly, when you get to that final primer, it will lock your priming disc out so you never run dry. In this next step, we'll take some primers and get them in the primer tube. And as always, anytime you're using primers, you want to have safety glasses on. Now we've included a primer turning tray for your convenience. You simply line it up, and flip them over. Once on the grooved portion of the tray, simply gently shake them back and forth and they will flip over to the anvil up location. Once all primers are anvil up, you'll reinsert the top and flip them over. This will orient all the primers anvil down, shiny side up. Now you're ready to pick them up. Find your primer pickup tubes that come in both large and small and select the appropriate one for what primers you're using. Next, you simply take the plastic grommet and press it over the primer. The next step is to take your full primer tube and insert the primers. Now these tubes will hold exactly 100 primers. To get started, remove your fiberglass follower and line up the filler tube with the primer tube. Now you can remove this cotter pin and you'll hear the primer start to fall. Next, you can take your fiberglass follower and insert to ensure all the primers are clear. Now that your primer tube is full, you'll need to get some primers into the priming disc. Now, if you've mounted your primer housing on the left side, you'll need to pull that disc 2 clicks. If you've mounted that housing on the right side, you'll need to push the disc 2 clicks. What that will do is feed a primer into the priming station. You can test by simply raising the handle and you'll see a primer ready to be seated. If you filled your primer tube with 100 primers, you'll successfully be able to prime 99 cases. And that's because that 100th primer is in the station just before your primer punch. This fiberglass follower will drop into a priming location and lock the rotation of your priming disc. This is to alert you that you are on your final primer. Now, if you're only priming that many cases, simply lift the follower, index your priming disc, and you're ready to go. Or at this point, if you're doing more priming, you can refill your primer tube. We're now ready to set the primer seating depth. You'll need a cartridge case that needs primed and your Allen wrench. The first step is to loosen that nylon-tipped set screw and back out that primer handle stop such that 50 thousandths of an inch is exposed above the plate. That's about the thickness of a dime. We're now ready to set the primer depth. You'll take your cartridge case and insert it firmly in the back of the shell holder and depress the handle to seat the primer. If the cartridge case doesn't want to come out of the shell holder after the initial seating, you'll simply need to lower that primer handle stop a little bit so that you can seat the primer a little deeper. Next, inspect the primer. Now we need this thing to be at least flush, but Sammy calls for flush to -8 thousandths. Now, you can measure that with a set of dial calipers. Here at Hornady, we really shoot for about 2 or 3 thou below flush. Now, you'll simply adjust that primer handle stop and reseat the primer until the desired depth is achieved. Once that's done, tighten the set screw and you're ready to begin really efficient, fast, and precise priming. To begin batch priming, it's simply 4 easy steps. You'll remove the cartridge case that's just been primed, rotate the disc, insert a new cartridge case, and then depress the handle. It's as simple and fast as that. If you've finished up priming, but there are still primers in the tube, the easiest, fastest, and safest way to take them out is one at a time. Simply depress the handle, grab the primer, and take it back to its original packaging. Index it one at a time until they're all gone. Now, that index wheel will not move as the final primer is just before the primer punch. You'll need to remove the fiberglass follower, index it, and lift it for your final primer. When you're ready to swap from small to large or large to small primers, there's just a few steps. First, remove the shell holder, primer guide, and primer arm. A little tip to help get that shell holder out is take a piece of brass, simply install it in the shell holder, and lift it out. You'll then take your primer guide. Next, you'll remove your primer punch. Simply depress the handle and grab the punch. Pull the pin and remove your primer disc. To reinstall, take the new primer punch, set it in place with the appropriate size primer guide. You can then take your shell holder and install. Next, you'll take the appropriate size disc, again with the raised portion up and the detents facing down, and install it in the back. Secure it with the pin. The final step in changing from large to small or small to large primers is the primer tube. Simply remove the tube support and the tube itself and insert the one with the correct size with the shouldered side down. And it's that simple. The VersaPrime bench priming tool is one of the most versatile, precise, and safe priming tools on the market. We built this for anyone looking for precision, accuracy, and speed in the priming operation. Now, if you have any questions about this, don't be afraid to reach out to our tech department, tech@hornady.com, or give us a call at 800-338-3220.